Welcome, everybody. We are so glad to see you. There will be three of us that do the presentation today. Seated with me is Kathy Meyer. So I am Ellen Erlanger, and I'm pleased to be here as well. Marjorie Krebs, who you can hopefully see on your screen as well, is joining us from New Mexico. Marjorie lives out there and is on faculty at the University of New Mexico. She has consulted with us on a number of projects. We have known her a long time. And actually, the three of us together have given a great deal of our hearts and our minds to the creation of Designing the Future, acting on a strong foundation of research about middle school kids along with field testing a lot of the individual activities over a long period of time and using our personal experiences about the magic and the mess that is middle school. We have created an experience that we think is very solid and very engaging, and we hope you will agree is important for kids of this age. We have folks that had signed up for the webinar today, and hopefully everybody will make it, but folks from several states will be part of the meeting, and we're really thrilled about that because we, even though we are in Ohio and certainly hope that this program has a lot of visibility here in our own state, we hope that it also will have national potential. And we know that some of you who are with organizations, Mary's with Past Foundation, which is national in scope and far-reaching, and so we hope folks will spread the word because we think this is good for middle school kids everywhere. As you can see from the title slide, you're looking at the cover of the Student Journal, which is a substantial publication. And the cover tells you that designing the future is all about discovering strengths and exploring opportunities and taking action that matters. Now, I bet you hear those words and you think, well, that sounds great. Do they really mean it? I'm here to tell you we really mean it. We really help the kids look in depth at who they are and who they want to become. We are very serious about exploration happening in authentic ways, in a variety of ways. And the part that deals with taking action happens through surface learning, which is one of our favorite instructional strategies. And it is our belief that if a teacher adopts the program and is working with a group of kids and designing the future, that they're going to do great things in their school and community using the program as a guide. Let me tell you a little bit about our organization, and we were going to do this even if Emmy wasn't on the call, but Kathy and I work along with Emmy, who is in this photo on your right, and with Kristen Bordage, who appears in the group photo on the left. The four of us are a team. We love working with schools to help them make learning irresistible. And that's another phrase that sounds nice, but we really mean that one too. We are all about making learning as engaging as possible, working with schools and districts to figure out what their shared vision for optimal instruction is, and then really giving them the tools to make that vision a reality. And you will see the words toward the bottom of this slide: passion, purpose, agency, and community. Those are things that guide our work, not just with kids, but also with teachers. And we love this work. We've been doing it together for several years, and we look ahead to a bright future, we hope. For the webinar, for the formal part of it, we are going to keep everybody muted, but we will invite questions at the end. In the meantime, if you think of a question and you want us to see it along the way, please write it in the chat so that we will notice it. We are, of course, recording it so that people who couldn't make it today but who had expressed interest will have an opportunity to hear the presentation and also hear the questions that you raise. If for some reason at the end we're not able to respond to whatever question you may have, we would love to follow up with you. So if you provide your email in the chat, we will get back to you and make sure that you receive an answer. Following today, we will send everybody a copy of the recording. And we will also send you some additional materials that sort of recap the highlights of what the program is about. For the webinar today, this is really organized around the questions what, why, and how. So we are going to do a good job, we hope, of telling you what designing the future consists of, what it's about, what its intent is, why we think it's important, and how you can get involved. You will see throughout the conversation today that we pitch in front of you a few slides from research, some things to think about so that you can connect what research tells us about middle school kids with the areas of emphasis in our Designing the Future program. And the main idea that we want you to think about in this particular quote from Edutopia is that we need to trust kids to do what they call transcendent thinking, imagining themselves in the big picture, thinking about life outside of their own little world and how they can contribute to it. Like us, I imagine you hear from time to time folks saying kids today just don't care about anything but themselves. We don't believe that for a second. We believe that given the opportunity, kids care a great deal about what is going on locally and globally. And if we give them opportunities to really become involved, that they will do a great job. We believe we can help them discover a sense of purpose and identity in deliberate ways, and that we can make school feel absolutely relevant to their lives. And so Designing the Future has that goal in mind. So what is this thing? You know, it's an innovative middle level curriculum. It's intended for students at that middle level, at that pivotal turning point. It is a program that places tremendous emphasis on kids being involved in authentic experiences in the community and in contact with the real world. So even though it has a student journal, this is not a paper pencil, just read about it sort of experience. This is a program in which the activities in the journal inspire kids to reach out into the community and have a variety of experiences that are really important. It is designed to be very hands-on, very collaborative, and there is reflection throughout the entire process. We believe that learning is much deeper and experiences are much richer when both teachers and students have opportunities to reflect. And so the reflection process is built in very strongly throughout the program. We introduce a concept called legacy in the book, and we make sure that kids begin to experience that they are creating their legacy day by day and deed by deed. That legacy is not about what happens to you because you pass away. Legacy is what you build in your life and in the quality of things that you do and the values that you demonstrate through your actions. And so this is action oriented. This is to counter the idea that school is delayed gratification. We don't want kids to learn this and do that so they can be real people someday. We want them to have the opportunities to be active citizens immediately and to do things that matter. I think you can tell so far, because we've used the terms purpose, passion, and agency, that we really care about those things and that we really care about authenticity and active engagement. Something that I have not mentioned, which is very much at the heart of the program, is the idea that career exploration should happen from the inside out. This is true of kids. This is also true of adults. And what we mean by that is that looking at career options isn't very meaningful if you don't know yourself very well. That when you are looking at possibilities for the future, you can do a much better job as a young person or as an adult the more you know about yourself. You're looking for places where you fit. You're looking for situations that make sense for who you are. So the important thing is to work on who you are as the first a step out of the gate, and that is how the book is set up. When we get to the idea of career exploration, we're also talking about exploring multiple possibilities. So the idea of a student landing way too early on just one thing that would be a good fit for them is probably ill-advised, because lots of occupations will unfold between now and the time that kids are actually working. Things will change. The kids themselves will change. So it's important to look at multiple possibilities and to reflect all along the way. This is another quote that we were so interested in sharing with you. AMLE is the Association for Middle Level Education, and they have a special division which looks specifically at career connections for young people. And if you look about 3/4 of the way down this passage, you'll see that they recommend that we should be helping kids find joy at the intersection of what they're good at, what they love, what they'll be paid for, and what the world needs. That is exactly the approach that we're talking about when we mention looking at career from the inside out. It's an exact match for the way that we have approached this. Okay, we're going to introduce you to, we wanted to give you some foundation about what the program is intended to do, and then show you the animated film that we recommend teachers share with kids on day 2 of their time together. So the teacher on day 1 theoretically gives a little bit of an intro of what's ahead, and talks with kids about what they really enjoy most when as learners, what kinds of things are reinforcing for them in a positive way. But when you really jump into the program itself on the second day, this is how the kids are introduced to what this is going to be about.
Today, we begin a journey of exploration and action. This journey will take us into a world of endless possibilities and exciting challenges. A journey full of inspiration. A journey where we use our voice, gifts, and knowledge to make a positive difference in our community and world. A journey filled with discovery, engagement, collaboration, and empowerment. Our journey will help us envision our next steps, take action that matters for ourselves and others, and begin to realize our true potential. Together, we will discover a world where every turn is an opportunity. An opportunity to show up and have real impact. Our journey will take us beyond our classroom and our school. It will help us learn a lot about ourselves and challenge us to explore possible options for the future. Today, we stop being just students. Today, we begin our journey as change makers. Young people designing the future for ourselves, our school, our community, and the world.
One of the things that we look forward to is not just how students will respond the first time they see that, but we also recommend that teachers show it again at the very end of the experience and say, okay, did we do all this? How do you feel about it? So they will see the journey ahead of them and then get to reflect on the journey that they have completed. Throughout the book, the artwork is very much about students being on a path and continuing to discover new things. And so artistically, we're really excited about it. We took a lot of energy with our design people to try to create a vibe for that journey that we think will resonate with young people. And we hope that you will agree that it's going to work. The features of the program, I think we have mentioned these as we've gone, and I don't want to be repetitive. I think it's important, though, to know about the teaching guide, the resource hub that also supports that with additional materials, and the pacing guide. And Kathy will be talking about those a little bit later. But importantly, this is a very easy curriculum to pick up and move through successfully. The student journal is so clearly laid out that I think kids will not have difficulty understanding the intent of the activities and experiences, and they'll be guided by the teacher. And also the teaching guide is very much like a really good cookbook, not like the kind that leaves out some of the ingredients. So I think people will have an excellent time moving through that. The flow of the program is very intentional, so you can see the things that we have mentioned so far, and there's a particular order to them. So everything that deals with self-awareness in terms of the idea of legacy and gifts and interests is at the front end. Once there is a strong sense of self established and also some community built among the young people in the class, then the attention turns to looking at strengths and needs in the school community and the world and taking action through service learning and doing that in a way that is very clearly guided. And then when kids have had an impact and really felt a sense of accomplishment from service learning, we feel that that is the perfect point for them to think about their own future and how they can continue that desire to make a contribution and think about that in terms of future career possibilities. And so that piece happens toward the end of the program. We talked about doing career exploration from the inside out, and we wanted to just mention to you a concept that is very central in the program called the internal compass. We have students collect the information about themselves in this image on your right, the blank compass. They begin to collect information about all the things that strike them positively, that fit their strengths and interests, that give them a sense of accomplishment. Those things go on the inside of the diagram. And then on the outer rim go the things that they don't feel as comfortable with and that they even sometimes avoid, knowing that they might break through some of those things in the future, but at least they have a picture of what this looks like to them presently. We think of the internal compass as partly a mirror and partly a GPS. So they're looking at themselves through this image that they create, and then also using it as a guide for what sorts of situations might make sense in the future.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. As Ellen and Kathy mentioned, I'm Marjorie Krebs, and I am a professor and the director of teacher licensure at the University of New Mexico. I started my career in education as a teacher, and I taught high school social studies for 15 years. So what I want to talk about today is why we have put designing the future together the way we have and how it connects to research. In my work with student teachers and teacher candidates, we're always trying to provide them with background research and then how that is implemented in the classroom with students. So certainly when we work with our teacher candidates on service learning, and that's a really important aspect for working with teacher candidates who are going to be working with middle level learners, we talk about the research that focuses on adolescents. And you all are teaching and involved with kids at that level, so you know how important it is that they start to begin to identify who they are and appreciate that with self-esteem, and then also be able to connect with their peers in a positive way and have that supportive classroom environment to encourage that. These are the concepts that are developed at the beginning of the book. Students look at who they are and begin to come up with adjectives and descriptors of themselves. Go ahead, Kathy, next slide. And then they begin to work together for that service learning that we're talking about and community engagement. So they create that feeling of community in the classroom, and they engage the content that you're teaching with focusing on the community through service learning. And then at the same time, they're exploring their interests and collaborating with each other and making decisions. This section of the book is all part of exploring their community and seeing what the needs are and then beginning to take action. Go ahead. And then once we have continued to work with the students and working together, while we're doing that, they're engaging with the academic content. They're motivated to learn. They begin to have that agency that Ellen talked about earlier. We are seeing things that need to be done, and we are choosing something and doing something about it. One of our aspects of working with service learning is that we purposefully insert career awareness. Every time they're in the community, anytime they're working on exploring what's around their community, we're looking at what careers do you see? What are people doing with their jobs and enjoying it and getting paid for doing it? So it's a purposeful aspect of this curriculum that we do have students look at careers. And then finally, to summarize, students end up with an increased sense of civic responsibility. I see my community, I see what can be done, and now I have the power and skills to do something about it. And they do that in collaboration, not only with their peers and teachers, but parents are involved and community members with their community partners as well. Students take on leadership roles. Students have increased attendance. And all of this that I am sharing is, part of the research around service learning. I will tell you a quick story. When I was teaching secondary social studies and we were in the middle of our service learning project, I ran into Shad in the hall. He was a tall, redheaded basketball player, and he came right up to me and said, "Ms. Krebs, I was going to cut school today, but I remembered it was service learning day, so I had to be here." And I have never forgotten that. I mean, students connect with this type of learning and know that they need to be present to make it happen. Their presence matters during this project. I never had to say, I never had to answer the question, why do we need to know this? Because what is happening in designing the future all builds on the skills that they need, the identities that they're developing, the collaboration working together, resulting in a great project that they implement, all with reflection infused. And not to lose sight of the last point there, that once our middle school kids are out in the community doing positive things, our community sees them in a very positive light as well.
So I believe this is my part. When we first started on this and through the entire process, which Emmy could tell you was a hard birthing experience in getting this done. And part of the reason is that we love teachers. We love kids too, but most of the work that we do is directly with teachers. And we wanted to create a program that would support them not only in the instructional materials that they were provided, the student journals, but the teaching guide, and then other ways to support them in the training and questions and other support materials. So Ellen's mentioned before that the student journals, and when we designed this, it really was designed in mind that a school could integrate this as a semester or a 9-week course. It was not necessarily, I'm teaching something else and I can take a few days to pick out some activities in this. It is very much created in a way that builds on itself. Every experience kids have builds so that you have the complete puzzle at the end of the experience. And so it's 117 pages, and it includes, we hope you'll see that they're very engaging activities. We all taught middle school kids, and we know that it's important to keep them engaged, and they're capable of being engaged. And Ellen had mentioned this before, that reflection is a big part of this experience because we want the kids to have an experience and then reflect on what the meaning of it was. What are they taking away from that can build towards the culmination at the end? The teaching guide, I don't think you'll ever find a teaching guide that is more detailed in step-by-step how to work through this program. It's very detailed, and along with, Ellen had mentioned a pacing guide, that there's suggested, we know you all are great teachers and you'll find a way to implement this into your program. But if it's helpful, there is a pacing guide that shows an estimate of the time to spend on activities, whether it's a semester course or a 9-week course. And we know some people may spread it out over the course of the year. And so you should be able to have that kind of flexibility. I wanted to go back and say one thing about the student journals too. We spent a lot of time in the beginning debating about schools have gone one-to-one, so much is on kids' iPads or Chromebooks. And we felt very strongly, and still do, that we wanted this to be something kids could hold, they could write in, they could collaborate with. That collaboration is a part of this entire program. And we wanted kids really digging deep into this and being proud of the kinds of information they put in. We hope it's the thing at the end of the year that they take home, they put somewhere, and pull it out every year afterwards to take a look at, what did I say when I was in the 7th or 8th grade or the 6th grade, and how have I changed? And so, though there are a lot of wonderful materials that are digital, this was a conscious decision on our part not to make it digital. One of the things we're really happy about is the Curriculum Resource Hub. And I think it's something that I'm hoping that you'll see that this is something that has our program kind of stand out apart from other curriculum that you might receive, in that there are, as we said, the teaching guide is very detailed, but there are still concepts and approaches, the internal compass and career from the inside out, that we wanted to be able to talk with teachers about. And so when you start to think about, okay, if we were doing this in Central Ohio, we could gather teachers. Well, if it was throughout Ohio, that might be a little harder. And hopefully, if this is a national program, it would almost be impossible to do training on site. And so this Curriculum Resource Hub is part of your subscription if you purchase the program, and you will find very detailed. Ellen is the star of the show, and I'm going to show you a little excerpt of one of her videos. But there is a overview video, there is an introductory video, and then there is a video for each of the 7 units that walks you through not only the approach, but the philosophy behind what's included. There are also additional resources. We often use videos of like young role models that you can share with kids so that they can begin to picture themselves in being able to do important big things as others have done. And so there's lots of additional resources beyond the student journal and the teaching guide that's part of this resource hub. I'm going to just show you the very beginning of Ellen's overview video.
Now that you've had a chance to flip through the journal a bit and you've seen the video that you're going to be sharing with your students very soon, let's begin to look through the pages of the journal together. And we'll go from the beginning of the book. Each section will represent a different video.
So if you had another 28 minutes, I'd play the whole thing. But the most of the videos are short, just going over that unit. And I think will find that very useful, the resource hub. And it's something that we will continue to add resources. There will be sample service learning projects for those teachers who would like to have an example versus coming up with their own, or looking at an example and then coming up with their own as a part of the project. There's also virtual coaching and consultation. One thing I think is a hallmark of our organization, whether it's designing the future or our K-12 professional development or graduate classes or any of the things that we offer, we don't just spend a little time with you and then you're on your own. In fact, it's hard to get rid of us. And so we are available for virtual coaching and consultation. And our goal at down the road is to make the hub also a place that teachers can go to and talk with one another and begin to share. When teachers collaborate on work, design work together, there's nothing that they can't come up with. So how much does the program cost? And as we said, the journal's 117 pages and the teaching guide's more than that. And so we looked at, try to compare other materials of this kind, which were hard to find actually. And so we tried to price this at a reasonable amount of $20 for each of the student journals, and a teaching guide is $20. The Curriculum Resource Hub is a one-time $400 subscription. You'll get a password to be able to enter it once you have the program, and everything is included in that. And then shipping, of course. We'll also work with schools on an appropriate discount for large orders. We've had some large city school districts who have shown an interest in this. And so we're trying to make this as workable for everyone as possible. To get more information, you can contact us at that email, curriculum@partnershipsforall.org, or visit our website. Everything we've talked about is on our website for Designing the Future, and so you can get more. The last quote, again with research, it was very, there are times that you find research and then create materials, design materials around the research. And there are times that you created the materials and the research fully supports your approach. And so this was another one when you get a chance to take a look at it. And our goal really is to help kids perform better academically and be citizens of the world. If we could wave a magic wand and say, what's our mission, not just at middle school, but at every grade level. And if we could say it's to help kids find their purpose, help them identify their gifts and their skills, and provide the academic knowledge and experiences to pursue that purpose, we will have changed the world. And so Ellen's got one last testimonial here.
I don't know if you folks have had the pleasure to either read the work or hear a presentation by Dr. Russ Quaglia, but Russ is a dedicated professional who is really the number one expert globally in the area of student voice as well as a sense of purpose. And he is just a delightful human being. He touches your teacher heart in an instant because, like us, he cares about teachers as well as kids. And we are working on a project with Russ, and just coincidentally, when we finished the journal, Kathy sent it to him, and without us asking for any kind of endorsement, he sent us an email and said, I think you should use this. This is really how I felt when I looked at the program. And that meant the world to us because we never solicited it. We didn't ask in any way, but he felt that it resonated with all of the work that he has done on voice and engagement and purpose. And he knows how much we value the idea of preparing kids to be experts and change makers. And when he saw the journal, he really felt mission accomplished on that. So we hope you will agree. As Kathy said, we do this work in a very heartfelt way. It is not like either of us to give a formal presentation. So doing a webinar in this way is not quite our style. But the main thing that is important to us is that when we work with teachers in career development and service learning, they tell us that this kind of work reminds them why they went into teaching. It reminds them what the purpose of school is supposed to be. And in this world, when there is so much pressure related to other forms of measurement and accountability, we need to tune our young people into these authentic opportunities, and we need to enable our teachers to be a part of the process that they really wanted to pursue as a part of teaching.
Open it up.
I think we can. Can we see some faces? There we go. If any of you would like to make a comment or offer a question, we are open to that. Just go ahead and unmute and we'll respond as best we can.
And I believe we have some people who aren't showing up on the screen, and I'm
Mhm.
not sure exactly why, but. So here's everybody.
Okay.
Caitlin?
Hey, we're just so remember I'm sitting with a team of colleagues.
Right. Can
Really
you
appreciate
introduce
it.
yourself and tell them where you're from?
Yes. Hi, I'm Caitlin Sweetliam. I'm the director of service learning at Trinity Episcopal School, which is in Austin, Texas. And we are thinking about using Designing the Future as a curriculum that could help us with kind of like a capstone service learning experience for eighth graders, because we're a pre-K to eighth grade school. And so feel very aligned with everything that you've shared, and are just wondering if you have some examples of like the kinds of projects that students completed in using this program. And I know that it can vary a lot, and that the point of having student agency is that it's very flexible, and it might be that some of the projects were more local, like some kind of change in the school community itself, and then other things might be reaching out and partnering with organizations in the wider community, or even like global organizations that to affect change. But do you have some like concrete examples?
We will, and I will, we'll talk a little bit about it now, but when we send information to you, I'll add some. Now, keeping in mind that we're launching this program now, but we've been working in service learning
since the 70s.
Since the 70s. Hate to bring that up. And I'm glad that you talked about the different ways that kids can make a difference, because when we talk about making a difference in their community might be their school. And so when eighth graders are working with second graders on simple machines or research, and also building that relationship, that's a wonderful service learning project. Kristen, who's in the corner, I don't know where you see her, but she's also with our organization, and she's working with a school in Lancaster, which is outside, well, you probably don't even know where Columbus is, but about an hour from where we are. And they have been in the process of studying about the Ronald McDonald House, local Ronald McDonald House, and the kids in the school have built a playhouse that will be given to a family of Ronald McDonald House. So sometimes we can give you examples of projects where kids have worked within the school, they've worked with local organizations, and then we have others that have done global work as well. And some of the videos that you would find there's one unit in specifically that deals with role models, and so there's a number of young role models about their age who started organizations that have become national or global in nature. So nothing is too, I hate to use the word small because nothing is small. Nothing is too local and nothing is too global. And we've seen kids who have, first graders who work with Alzheimer's patients in ways that it would be difficult for adults who hadn't had the preparation that they had. You know this. You see this probably every day in your work, but we will give you some examples of projects that I think you'll find interesting.
Hi, I'm Karen Rayburn, the academic dean at Trinity. I just wanted to follow up to see if you had a sample unit that was available to view, like a teacher's unit or even some of the online curriculum of, like, we wouldn't need a whole copy of it, but just one particular, just to see how they're designed and structured.
We will. In fact, in what we're going to send you, there's a sample. I'll include a whole unit.
That'd be great.
And
Yeah.
then also maybe the corresponding teacher instruction so that you can see what that's like.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I recognize that there might be some flexibility with this, and it's not sort of a one size fits all, which I think is great. Right. But is the idea that sort of like by the end of going through this course of study, that every individual student has kind of designed their own thing, or because I know there's also collaboration, and so are there kind of like tracks or paths where it's sort of like, okay, this group is really interested in environmental issues, so together they're going to redesign something on their own campus to reduce waste, but then this other group is very drawn towards, storytelling and creative expression as a form of advocacy, so they're going to write a play, or is it like each one, like we have 60, 70 eighth graders, would that result in 70 different projects, or what? Or I mean, it's kind of up to how we decide to implement it, or
it's really set up primarily to have kids collaborating and doing things on a group basis. Now, it would be up to any individual teacher whether to treat their group as the whole class if there seems to be some real commitment and interest and authentic investment in the same idea. It might be the whole class, or within the class, the teacher may decide to allow the kids to divide up into groups. For us, and again, this is a function of our experience over more decades than we care to admit, but I think that the teacher has to be in charge of what's manageable. And we're believers on
these are the mother teachers speaking to you right now.
we're believers that that it is absolutely possible to build a sense of student ownership and agency, even if the project seemed to emanate from the curriculum or from the teacher. The key is building the enthusiasm and the ownership at the front end. It's beautiful when it can be the kids' ideas, but that isn't always what's going to happen. And we're realistic about that. That doesn't mean that the kids won't feel like it was theirs. There are strategies for making sure they own it, and those sorts of strategies are built into the program.
I would add to that. So if we listed out the kinds of experiences that we hope kids had during this, collaboration is definitely at the top of the list. And so I'm not saying that there won't be some teachers that it seems more appropriate to have kids, Johnny's interested in this and Sally's interested in this, and let them go. But to miss that opportunity to have them work together and use all of their gifts, because some kids, I mean, part of the goal at the beginning of the book is helping kids. I'm a visual spatial person. I'm a musical. I love to speak. I loved it. It's all those things. And so when kids can use their gifts where maybe they haven't been able to show that in a traditional classroom, that our
Oh my
probably our
gosh.
goal, we want it to be as flexible for teachers as possible, but certainly one of our goals is that kids can work together using their collective gifts. There's a real emphasis on, these are my gifts as a class, these are our collective gifts, and how can we make a difference?
I think too, and you'll be familiar with this more than people who maybe come from a school that doesn't center around service learning so much. But our belief is that when kids go through the program together and they utilize the service learning model that's built into the journal, which is the typical NYLC model, that on the heels of that, then kids can run their own in the future. The teacher is going to teach the model and guide them through the use of it this time. And the journal should accomplish that. But then from there on in, as they discover other things that they want to pay attention to, they'll be natural at making sure that all of the elements of a good project are built in.
I don't know if this makes sense, but one of the role models that the kids are exposed to in the beginning is Ryan Hurljack. And when he was I think a first grader in a Catholic school, his teacher was talking about teaching them about Africa. And as a part of her lesson, it came up that they didn't have clean drinking water. Well, 6-year-old Ryan ends up going on his own and raises enough money to build a well in Africa on his own. And I love that he did that, but it makes me very sad that the teacher never said, what could we do as a group? She could have had 25 Ryan Hurljacks, and they never had that experience. And so that's one of the, I think, our we probably have a strong belief that every kid can be Ryan Hurljack if they're given the opportunity.
I have a
I think,
question. Sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Hallie.
So I was actually in a school where we had that, where our science teacher, who was very passionate about service learning, did a project with a sister city. It's not even a city, it's a rural area in Africa. And they created an item that helped bring water to that village as a class. And it was an ongoing project. But my question is, where do you see this? So there's those that are automatically passionate about service learning and see the value in service learning. And then there are those who, feel it's kind of overwhelming and it's a big step. Where do you see this kind of fitting in a middle school as far as subject area? I mean, I can see it fitting in all of them and doing something as a partnership, which of course would be lovely, but you have to baby step sometimes. I could see it fitting in social studies. I could see it fitting in science very easily, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are, having come from education as well.
I think it can have a different curricular home in each building depending on how your schedule is set up. I know, in Ohio, there is certainly a move for particularly going into next year and on into the future. There'll be active encouragement for middle schools to actually implement more courses that have a career awareness focus. So in a situation where there is time available that's supposed to build the student's career development, it's a perfect fit for that. If you're looking at the service learning aspect of it, typically you're right, science, social studies, family and consumer science. Depending, if you have an interdisciplinary team, sometimes the language arts person can take on some of the reflection content. So it depends on how you're staffed and what your schedule looks like, I think. We envision in Ohio, I think, that social studies, family and consumer science, and specified career courses are probably the likely landing places here. Um, uh, Elsewhere, I'm not, elsewhere I can't really say. But, fortunately, in a middle school, sometimes you're also creating a cycle of exploratory courses that are 9 weeks, and you have those on a quarterly basis and they rotate. So if there's an interest in a school in valuing this sort of experience, it could become that.
We have a school district. We had a couple of schools that wanted to pilot it this semester, and Margaretta Local Schools did just that. They were creating some new exploratory classes at their middle school level, and this is one of them. And so and I believe if Nikki Ford, I'll put you on the hot seat here, but Nikki is assistant principal at St. Mary's in German Village. And she and her principal said, oh, we could teach this. So that won't always be the case at every school. But I agree with Ellen. I think we're going to see lots of different ways that people have tried to figure out. And I think we're going to have some people that are attracted to this because of the strong service learning background or focus of it, and others who want something meaningful on career awareness for their kids, where we're not just looking at job titles. We're not, this is really getting kids engaged doing the work of real people. And so then how that connects to how can I use that passion in a job that will pay me is an important transition. So I think it'll just depend on the school setting. And again, any way we can be of help after this to brainstorm, what your situation is. And as people begin to implement the program, we'll have a lot more examples of how they figured out how to do it. We've had some that said, we might split this over 2 years, do half of it in 7th grade and half of it in 8th grade. And we'll have to see how, they implement it and how they feel the best way to do it is.
I think the third motivation, besides the career motivation and the service learning or civic engagement motivation, is the mental health engagement, frankly.
Yeah.
I think that there's so much concern about kids being disengaged because they're not finding learning meaningful. That this is potentially an answer to that. And so if that's the motivation, then I think the school will just find a spot. They'll figure it out, because the cost of not attending to student disengagement is such a great cost. And we think this is part of the answer. I think if schools find the time and space to do this, they'll see a payoff in how kids perform and feel and behave down the road, that it will be a turning point.
Yeah. And I meant to mention this on the teaching guide too. I talked about how we were really so adamant about it being a paper journal that kids could hold, they could write in, they could keep it, and so forth. We felt the same way about the teaching guide. And when you see it, we really suggest to the teachers that they participate in the activities, that just like the kids, they are also a student who's going through this experience, which may be a new experience for them, and that there's a lot of reflection that's built in, not only on, what would I do differently next time I implement this, or, what worked well, what didn't, and so forth. But really, what meaning did this have to me? Because we love, when Ellen talked about Russ Quaglia, he's coming out with a book on purpose, the renewable energy, and it's aimed at teachers who are probably thinking about leaving the field because they've lost their purpose. And we think that this can also add purpose to teachers' lives.
We
I
know,
realized,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I realized I never introduced myself, and I'm sorry about that. So I'm Hallie Snyder, Director of Career Focused Education for Southfield Public Schools in Southfield, Michigan. So we're a northern suburb of Detroit, and lucky enough to have Emmy working with us right now.
Yes. We
Hallie,
hear all about it.
Hallie, thank you for being here and for making me feel just a little bit closer to Ann Arbor, which for me is heaven on earth. Thank you very much.
Well, and you're near Columbus, so that's kind
I'm
of
living in enemy territory, but I'm a U of M grad, so yeah.
a blue.
Thank you.
Can we answer any questions? We know we're right at 5 o'clock. And as you can imagine, we could talk about this for days, and we don't want to do that for you. Is there anything that, any other questions? Otherwise,
I have a quick one. I think it might even be a quick answer. This is a really good program, right? It seems that it's at the right time for what needs to happen in our schools. So I appreciate all the work that you all have done with this. Does it require a level of consistency? And I think you might have answered a little bit of that earlier when you said, a school has decided to do the first part of it in seventh grade and the second part of it in eighth grade and those kinds of things. I can also, teachers are busy and we don't want them to think of this as an addition, right? And I can see them picking like Mondays of every month, the first Monday of every month. And does it does it lend better to consistency over time, or can they kind of break it up?
Early on, folks would say things to us when they knew we were working on it. Folks would say things, oh, so we could use these activities in advisory, like in advisory group on every now and then. And we do not recommend that much fragmentation. Now, that said, I mean, they are some great activities, to use on an individual basis, but as a sequence, it's a sequential program. It should have continuity. I do think, a school could make a conscious decision to do the self-awareness section separate from there are three major components, and you could choose points in time in middle school to accent those if that was your only option. The best option is to do it continuously, I think.
but I do think in this initial year, we're going to have people who are using the program in a variety of ways. And so it will be important for us to stay in contact. What worked, what didn't. When Ellen says that about advisory, I can totally understand why she says that. When I was a high school counselor, we had a advisory program, and it was activities that were I'll say were mimeographed off and given to the teachers that were unrelated from class period to the next week and so forth. It was just, I had to fill something in. So if I had something that was consistent where the kids were working on it throughout, that might work with a teacher who is really good about transitioning, remember what we did last week, and here's how it builds on this.
And if you have advisory pretty often.
Yeah. So, if it was once a month for 30 minutes, I would say that's not going to work. But I do think in the next year, part of our work will be to work with people who are implementing it. How are you doing it? What's really working? What would you suggest? And so forth.
And we trust teachers. So, I think that the main prerequisite is the teacher really cares about making this successful. And if there's a different mode of delivery in terms of the timing than we have envisioned, and a caring teacher takes it on in an earnest fashion, it's probably going to work because we're giving them a solid program. And if their motivation is earnest, they can probably figure out how to do it in a different time frame than we've thought about.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? It's really exciting that we've had people from Ohio, Michigan, Austin, Texas, and
Mexico.
New Mexico. And so it's been wonderful to meet you all. We will follow up with an email to you as soon as I can download this recording and add some additional things. But please don't hesitate to stay in touch. Our goal is to make this as meaningful and impactful for you and your students as possible.
We hope to hear from you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you in Austin.
Thanks, everybody.